Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Spotlight series hosted by Flint Genesee Education and Talent. In this series, we're introducing you to local professionals and giving you an inside look at different careers right here in our community. Today, we're super excited to be joined by Dominique Clemons, who serves as our County Clerk and Register of Deeds. Dom, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so to start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your job, and where you work?
Absolutely. So again, my name's Dominique Clemons. I have the honor of serving as the Genesee County Clerk and Register of Deeds, a position I was first appointed to in 2022 and elected to in 2024. It's generally an elected 4-year term, but because of some circumstances in our county, there's a vacancy that came open that I had the opportunity to fill. And being elected and appointed to this position, we actually made some history here in Genesee County, as I am the first African-American county clerk in the history of our county, as well as the youngest clerk or register of deeds in the state of Michigan, and the first openly LGBTQ clerk in the history of the state of Michigan. And that role of clerk register of deeds is an interesting and fascinating role. It's a big role in county government. Every county has a clerk and a register of deeds, and we're the record keeper of the county, maintaining the county's vital records, things like birth certificates, death certificates, marriage licenses, also administering the elections, handling court operations, and all of the property records, deeds, mortgages, things like that throughout the entire county.
That's awesome. And the work that you do is so essential to keeping our community operating in a lot of different ways. One of the reasons why I was really excited to talk to you today is because I know that you are a huge advocate for young talent here in our community. Oftentimes, you're one of the first people to volunteer to host an intern for the summer. And what we hear over and over from our summer interns who spend time with you is that maybe they're pursuing a career in political science and they think that means I've got to go straight to Washington, I've got to go straight to large government, but they're oftentimes surprised by the impact that they can have here in local government. And so I think that's a really unique experience that you give them, but really what you've based your entire career around.
Absolutely. And like you said, a lot of folks, when we think about political science or government, we think straight to the top. And while every level of government is very important, there's a lot more impact that folks can have at the local level of government. For me, I chose county government because not only am I able to have that local impact, but still at a bit of a larger scale. The folks that work in city and townships, hugely important roles, and they're dealing with the day-to-day pieces of people's lives, things like trash collection and sidewalks and things like that. Wasn't quite my fit for me. I was a little bit more in the weeds on policy and process and administration, where the county really came in. I always tell folks it's the highest level of government where you can still have daily interaction with the residents that you're working on behalf. Folks that are staffers at the federal level in Congress, or that even get elected to Congress, they're not interacting with their voters, with the community every single day as we are at the local level, and really playing that impact on people's lives. I think one great story about that in our office, and one of the things that we do a lot of times when we have students or even new staff in our office, is just the time to explore this community as well as what the office means to individuals. To get a birth certificate in Genesee County, it's a $25 cost. For a lot of folks, that doesn't seem like a big deal. But that birth certificate is needed for so many aspects of life: to enroll your kids in school, to get a driver's license, to get certain healthcare benefits. You need that birth certificate. And that cost can become really inhibitive to a lot of individuals. When I first started in office, we actually had a mother that had 4 children that came in and told us that she had saved up for months to get these birth certificates so that she could enroll her young kids in school. And I asked her, well, what do you mean you saved up? What did you do? And what she said broke my heart. She said that she had went several months without filling her own prescription medication so that she could have the money to get a birth certificate to enroll her kids in school. And I thought, no person should have to make that choice between healthcare and enrolling their kids in school. And that's the impact that folks, both elected and the staff and the volunteers that are working in local government, can directly have on somebody. Rather than going through months and months of policy to introduce a new piece of legislation, our office was able to spring and create a fee waiver program for our entire county to let folks get access to free records, things that you can only do at that local level of government.
I think that is so awesome. And I'm really glad that you shared that story, especially in today's day and age. Saying that you're going to pursue a career in politics can come with such a negative connotation. We see it on the news, we see it in headlines, but that's such a great example of how you've really stepped into your role, not to just do more of the same, but to truly make an impact right here in our community.
Yeah, thank you.
Dom, tell us a little bit about what inspired you to pursue this career. Did you always know that you wanted to work in some form of government?
That's a really good question. I think government, yes. I don't think anybody, or at least anyone that I've met yet, goes to school and thinks, I'm going to become the county clerk one day. It
Mm-hmm.
certainly wasn't on my radar at all. When I graduated from Flint Southwestern, went to Michigan State University, and I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grow up. And I tell folks I still am not completely sure what I want to do when I grow up. I changed my major several times during my undergrad, but
Mm-hmm.
really got involved with helping the community. And I knew I wanted to give back to my community in Flint. The water crisis was going on. I wanted to get involved. I was jumping between different majors in business and in hospitality and in government, and I ended up settling on public policy as a degree. Spent time interning in the state capitol with the House of Representatives, volunteered on some local campaigns, and it really just got into my blood, this volunteering, this service to our community. I really saw myself as the background person and loved working on policy, loved supporting elected officials that were doing this really important work in our community. And an opportunity came. My county commissioner was retiring, and I was encouraged to run for that position. And that's where the elected side of my career started. And from that, I thought, okay, this is really cool. I can be in this elected role and still have a separate full-time job where I'm still engaged in the community, giving back in my own unique way. I never thought it would turn into a full-time elected office or a full-time role in government. And as I mentioned before, when that position as clerk register opened up and I was appointed to it, it really changed that trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
It's been phenomenal. And like I first said, I don't think anyone chooses clerk register as their career choice when you're filling out your high school surveys. But I love the impact that this office has. It's such a huge office, interacting with folks every day. But also, it's one of those positions where you really get to make it into your own thing. And that's one of the really cool things about the elected side of government is that while, yes, I have this checklist of 6 core tasks that I have to do, there's a lot of other things as an elected official I get the opportunity to do, kind of my passion projects. It's not a requirement for the county clerk or register of deeds to be at community events or to do free birth certificate drives
Mm-hmm.
at different fairs and things like that. But those are the things that I'm passionate about growing up in this community. So the thing that drove me to this specific job and this career path just goes back to me having a heart for people and for community, wanting to help people. And I know there's so many people out there that think about that and they directly often go to the nonprofit path, which is a great and important path. I spent several years working at a couple of different nonprofit organizations before I entered the government space, and they really do go hand in hand. But government is another spot, and it does get really a negative connotation. I think a lot of times when people think about government, we think solely about legislative bodies. We think about city
Mm-hmm.
councils. We think about your House of Representatives. We think about Congress. And we see it as this policy-making branch of people fighting and arguing in politics. But really, the majority of government, the majority of people that work in government, and there are thousands of people in the United States that work for government. We have over 600 government workers just in the Genesee County government alone. We're not just that policy side of things. That's just one arm. Government's really a service provider. We do a lot of the same things that some nonprofits do. We have programs to help senior citizens, to help veterans, to help individuals that are low income. Health department that's giving out free resources or reduced cost resources. So as folks are considering a career or even just how they operate in day-to-day society, I encourage them, I challenge them to think about government more as a service center rather than just politics and debates.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about what your journey from high school to where you're at today looks like. I think it's so important for students to be reminded that you don't have to have it all figured out when you graduate from school. And like you just shared, you changed majors a couple of times until you could figure out what it was that you really want to focus on. What are the things that you did in high school that really helped you prepare for that transition? I know you are a proud Teen Quest graduate, an advocate of the program, but how did experiences like that help you prepare for that transition from high school into college, into figuring it all out?
Absolutely. And I'll admit that I think I was a little bit underprepared for my college
Mm.
experience. I graduated, as I said, from Flint Southwestern, which I do believe is, at that time, was one of the best Flint schools. Now the only Flint school that is there. And while I excelled in school programs in high school, the academic side of things, I actually struggled a lot my first couple of years in undergrad, just being such a different culture and an environment. But it really was a lot of those wraparound services, those extracurricular activities that got me to where I'm at, that got me to be able to be successful in college, but also to get me thinking about the world, about the community, and about career paths. When we're in high school, we're just usually thinking about passing that test, passing the exam, and thinking everything is on this linear path. But
Yeah.
it was those extracurriculars that I was involved with, getting involved with Teen Quest, learning how to shake somebody's hand, how to do an interview, that made me be able to ace scholarship interviews, to get job interviews, but also extracurriculars that have nothing necessarily to do with my career. I was very involved with band, both
Mm-hmm.
marching band, concert band, and those were the experiences that taught me a lot of things about making connections with people, taught me about discipline. So any club or activity that somebody gets involved in, be it athletics or sports or like I did music and band, those things have so much more of an impact than just the grades that you get. And I
Yeah.
think when you talk to individuals that are in the college space and making selections, college admission counselors and things like that, they're going to tell you the same thing, that
Mm-hmm.
just having the academics, having the grades aren't everything, right? It's about having a well-rounded resume when you leave high school of experiences that leave you to be someone with an open mind, with a willingness to learn. High school prepares you for college.
Yeah.
College teaches you how to learn. It doesn't teach you how to do a specific job. Now, if you go on past undergrad, if you get a
Mm-hmm.
master's degree like I did, a lot of times those are very specialized and specific to a career path. By the time I went to get my master's degree, I had a little bit more of that foundation that I wanted to do this public sector work, that I wanted to go into government, and really spent that time learning the trade, learning the craft about
Mm-hmm.
government and policy and helping individuals. But all of that kind of stacked on top of each other to put me to a spot of where I am today.
That's so helpful. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into what your work looks like on a daily basis. I'm sure that some of the people who are listening are surprised to hear that we have 600 individuals who are supporting our local government at Genesee County. And Genesee County is one of our largest employers here in the region, lots of opportunity to do great work. But for you and your role, what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, so for the clerk register's office, there is no such thing as a typical day. Every day is so completely different because we, just within my office, is such a big office with so many different roles. Of those nearly 600 government employees, part of county government in Genesee County, I have the honor of working directly with 25 of them who are my direct reports, who are my staff, broken into several divisions. So for me personally, my day-to-day looks a little bit different than some of my staff who have a little bit more of a regimented schedule.
Yeah.
We work 4-day work weeks in my office, so we are a Monday to Thursday operation. My staff all enjoy a 3-day weekend, and my staff themselves, they are often spending part of their day directly interfacing with the residents, with the consumers of these records that we're producing, working our front counter, helping people get their birth certificates, helping people do research into their genealogy, helping people file a deed or find historical records of property
Mhm.
records. Our office contains property records all the way from the founding of our county in 1836. So a lot of historical data. The other half of the day, the staff are doing that back end work. When we have somebody come in and apply for a marriage license, that is the customer facing side of things, but then we have to work through and processing that, getting that sent to the state, doing all of the approvals. Now, me directly, My day a little bit more unique. While we're open to the public from 8 to 4, my day is usually a lot longer than that. So I start pretty early in the morning handling my personal side of things, my morning routines, getting to the gym, doing reading and things like that. I do most of that stuff in the morning because the evenings always get away from me. I try to get to the office around 8:30 or so, and I spend the first hour of my day every day with no meetings on my calendar. That is blocked off. That's my desk time where I can do some of my best thinking, brainstorming, getting caught up on emails, and preparing for the rest of the day. Throughout the course of the day, it'll be various meetings with different residents, different constituent groups, other government departments. We believe really strongly in Genesee County in collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
both within the organization of our county government and with external partners and stakeholders. So I'm working right now on some projects with our health department. And some folks might think, well, what does the county clerk's office and the health department have to do with each other? Well, there's a lot that we overlap in. All of those vital records that I talked about are actually considered public health statistic data. So we work a lot on that. But actually, a project we're really looking forward to working on in this next election cycle is the social determinants of health and voting, and how you should be voting for your health, not because voting makes you more healthy, but the health outcomes of who you vote for, how you vote, and being civically engaged, how that has a impact on communities. And community and placemaking is one of those social determinants of health. So those types of meetings are happening throughout the day. As the elected, I am the executive of our office. So for both good and bad, a big portion of my day is managing staff. As I mentioned, I have 25 wonderful staff that's great to work with. But that means a good portion of my day is staff coming in and asking for clarification on projects, or we have a unique situation with a customer that we have to work through. And then the backside of that is, as the executive, I'm often the one that has to deal with discipline in those cases where a staff person is unable to meet the requirements of the office, and how we correct that and how we move forward. A lot of times the evening is spent at those community events where I am often directly at, especially when staff aren't able to go, but I love being at those things, going to events, speaking about our office, about the work that we're doing, just being part of community, networking, or providing services and resources at some of these events. So that's kind of, if I was to summarize what a day looked like, but each of those meetings throughout the day completely different. Different times of year also have different ebbs and flows. As the chief election administrator, election cycle is a very busy time for me and my office. We just came off of the November election this year. While it's an odd year, small elections for city and townships, we did have a couple of city council elections and school bond proposal elections. Election day for me starts at 5 a.m. and ends when the last vote has been counted and turned in. So for this November election, I left the office at 2 a.m. To be back the next morning to immediately start the process of certifying the election, which we're finishing up this week. And then next week through the first 2 weeks in December, we'll actually be auditing the election. Every election that happens in the state of Michigan has a public accuracy testing that happens before the election and an audit of the entire system after the election to ensure the security, the efficiency of the election process.
And 2 a.m., that's early for a typical election cycle, but we appreciate
2 a.m. is an early election. We've had several that, I start at 5 a.m. on Tuesday and I go home at 6 p.m. on Wednesday.
Yeah, but I think it really does speak to the care and time you guys take with the process, which we appreciate in our community so much. Now I want to talk about students who might want to follow in your footsteps. If this sounds like an appealing job or career path in local government, what do you think are the skills or qualities that are most important to your role or working in local government in particular?
Sure. So I'll say broadly, one of the big skills of working in government is a desire to help people. Most hard skills, if we talk about working a front counter, handling a cash drawer, writing papers or policy briefs, or being in the field in some of our external government roles in the health department, those are all skills that can be taught, both on the job training as well as through credential programs, be that college or a trade or vocational training. But one of the things that an individual has to come into themselves is the passion and the desire to serve people. And we
Mhm.
have seen some really great individuals come through county government who have really strong skills in what position they were hired to do. They don't have that drive, that passion, that desire to help people. And
Mhm.
those are often the folks that don't last very long in a government entity. Because the truth be told, nobody's getting rich from working in government, both on the staff side and the elected side.
Mhm.
It's really a labor of love, a passion for community and for helping people. So I think that is really the biggest asset, the biggest skill set folks need to find within themselves for these types of positions. Now, when it comes to my role as an elected official, I think some of the critical skills to have, some that might be self-developed and some that are taught through education, is networking and communication. I think
Mm.
we talk a lot about the different things. Like, yes, I learned about policy analysis and learned about election administration, but it all boils down to how we talk to each other as individuals, as human beings, how we treat people with respect, people that we often disagree with. And sometimes they're small disagreements, and sometimes they are fundamental value based disagreements. But either way, we need to work with each other. We are all part of the same community. And being able to have conversations, being able to listen to what the other side has to say, being able to articulate our own values and have the empathy to understand other folks' values is one of the core skills I think that folks in government need. And a big part of the work that I do is that networking piece, both for
Mhm.
our office and for other offices. Just having relationships with different organizations and the people in those organizations. So many times people come into my office asking for some sort of service or program that has nothing to do with my office and sometimes has nothing to do with county government.
Yeah.
But having built up those networks in our community helps us to be able to direct them to the right place to go. If somebody's coming in and right in the right spot and coming to file a DBA, doing business as to create a small business, they'll do that in my office. But
Mhm.
then they'll start asking questions about, well, how do we get grants to expand our business? How do we find staffing? How do we train our staff? How do we find a system that helps us manage our books? And that's where that networking comes in, where if you aren't part of the community, if you aren't networking, you just say, I don't know. But we go above and beyond and we say things like, well, there's this organization down the street that's really good at training on the financial
Mhm.
side of things. Or have you talked to the Flint Genesee group about their accelerator programs that they're doing? And just building those connections and putting community together is the other really important skill of public service.
And that really speaks back to the care that you mentioned early on. Like, you have to care and want to help people to build that skill set and build up that knowledge to be able to point them in the right direction, even if it's not your guys' office. So I love to hear that. And I think everything that you just shared is so important, especially working in a supportive role, local government. You really have to bring that desire and authenticity. And I think that people who are watching this can probably feel that from you. I know I experienced that with you in real life, is just that the authenticity to the core of who you are, wanting to help people. And you could do that in any job that you're in, but you've really found a way to do that as our county clerk and register of deeds.
Yeah. And I think that authenticity piece that you say is so important. It's something that's lacking in a lot of industries. I think, especially as a young person, and I think other young people feel this need that we have to put on a face, that we have to perform. And authenticity means a lot of things, right? It means having, for me, having that passion and being that connector to folks. But it also means showing up to any room that you're in with fullness of self. When
Mm-hmm.
I first started talking with you, I talked about my identity and three pieces of my identity because that's very important. And oftentimes, I think people think they have to turn on one piece of their identity or turn off another piece of their identity, depending on what room they're in. And authenticity and what people want to see in the job place, and I think what people want to see of their elected officials are people that are living into the fullness of themselves. I'm a very intersectional human being. I have a lot of different parts of identity that I am proud to share and to celebrate. Uh, as a millennial, I like certain types of music. I like to dress certain types of ways, and I bring that authenticity, that natural
Mm-hmm.
self to me. So I'm going to say if anyone takes anything from our conversation, it's absolutely that. Just be true to yourself. and be authentic, whatever career path that you choose.
I love that. And you also alluded already to your educational journey, but for someone who's listening and might be interested in pursuing this type of career pathway, what type of education, training, or certifications could help someone get started?
Sure thing. So again, starting generally and going a little bit more specialized, to work in government broadly, there's not a specific degree that you have to get. Now, there certainly are certificates and training programs and education that are helpful to that, but a lot of the positions, especially at local level, doesn't require a specific degree or any degree at all. And in fact, the majority of my staff, the really passionate individuals who are helping our residents every day, don't have a degree. And we have some in our office that have master's degrees, so the full
Mm-hmm.
spectrum there. Me directly, my undergrad degree is in public policy. The degree specifically about writing policy and understanding laws and ordinances. And I did go to get a master's degree. I have my master's in political management from the George Washington University. And that degree was a little bit more on the strategy, on speech writing,
Mm-hmm.
on running campaigns, on getting elected to office. Once I decided I wanted to go to that path, I did specialize specifically in that to be able to be successful. And I know a lot of schools offer a lot of different programs as broadly as just saying political science, which is a very general degree just
Yeah.
about governance. But you can also get very specialized even within undergrad and especially in your master's degree, public administration, if you want to go specifically into the running government departments,
Mm-hmm.
or degrees in public health, which is not a medical degree, you're not seeing patients, but it's that government side of healthcare and the policies of how we make sure that people are healthy in the long term. Within government, it's an organization. So we have all sorts of departments. We have folks that are in human resources and in finance. We have folks that do facilities and operations that have vocational and trade certificates.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of individuals that come in, they want to make a big impact. And in our office, again, having that 4-day work week, the flexibility that a lot of my staff are actually currently in school to get additional skills and new credentials. I have one individual working in our office that is on our deeds division working on property records, but is currently getting a degree in IT cybersecurity because that is something that they're
Nice.
passionate about. I have one individual in my elections division who's getting a degree right now in criminal justice and is planning to potentially go to law school in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the cool things about government is it gives you the opportunity to both be a generalist as well as a specialist and continue to hone your skills throughout the career. As an elected official, there's no specific degree that you need to get elected. As I mentioned, my degrees helped me very specifically in that role. But I
Mm-hmm.
have colleagues who are in elected office who have engineering degrees. I have colleagues that have no degrees at all that went to trade school and have been journeyman apprentices throughout their career. So it really gives you the opportunity to study the things that you're interested in. And I'm personally even considering going back to school to study some additional things. I'm really into that human interaction piece. So I'm considering things like organizational development or human psychology.
Mm-hmm. You'd be great in a weaving. I mean, you already do in your team, but I think that's something that you'd be really great at. I'm excited for you, and thank you so much for continuing to be such a good advocate for continued education in any way, shape, or form that comes. So you're talking about a very specific pathway, but these are opportunities that you're creating for your own team members in their free time, but in staff time too, making sure that you're continuing to develop your team to serve your constituents to the best possible ability.
Absolutely.
Wrapping up here, what is one piece of advice that you would give students as they think about their own future careers?
So I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give to students is to not be afraid to fail and to change course.
Mm-hmm.
I think we live in a society where we really think that everything has to be done exactly in a linear path and has to be done perfectly.
Yeah.
But that's just not the reality of how the world works. I think some of the biggest successes that I have come from some of my biggest failures that I've had of having to learn and having to recalibrate and change the path. I don't think very much in life is a straight path, be it professional, be it personal, be it your friendships, hobbies, everything ebbs and flows, with things weave together and weave in and out. So be flexible. Don't be afraid to try things and fail.
Mhm.
And just because you're failing doesn't mean that that's the thing that you should not do. Doesn't mean that I'm bad at this. It just means that we
Yeah.
need to try maybe a different approach to the same thing. Or potentially it does mean that you want to try something completely different. But I always tell folks, we don't know until we've tried. When
Mhm.
I first became clerk, as I mentioned, I was appointed, and that appointment happens by the circuit court judges. And when one of the judges called and asked me to interview, I said, I don't know anything about being county clerk. That was never on my path.
Yeah.
And the advice that judge said to me was, nobody knows how to do the job until they're in the job.
Mhm.
I think that was something that I've really carried with me, and I want to share with other folks of try and figure out on the path.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining us today, for sharing your story and your insights. And thank you to our viewers for listening in on this installment of Career Spotlight. Remember, these interviews are a way to help you explore different paths and discover opportunities that are available right here in Flint and Genesee County. For more spotlights, please visit our website at educateflintandgenesee.org. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.